Hello. I'm so sorry I'm late. Um okay. I'm keep forgetting that I had this live set up, but I wanted to go live real quick basically to talk about to do like a little checkup on recent events that's been happening with the Elijah Vu case. Um Nothing really has been happening. Hey Dozer, welcome. Um but let me bring up an article of something that happened recently, and then I do have a quick statement about said article, and it does have to do with uh, Stephen Avery stuff. So interesting enough, right? Kind of, not really has to do with it, but they did recently. Oh, disappeared. There it goes. Recently, they talked to the family, Stephen's family, and they searched the salvage yard for the child, not saying that the Averys had anything to do with the disappearance of Elijah. They simply wanted to search the property to try to find any leads or anything about, the Averys were just being kind and opening up their property um, to allow them to do that. A lot of private properties in and around that area are being searched. So this isn't the Averys are being targeted. This isn't Averys had anything to do with it. It's just simply they live in the area and they were asked by people, the volunteers, if they could search, and Avery said that's fine. I did ask a family member if they had any comments about the situation. They said that the property was searched back in February, but they had no problem again with volunteers searching again, just to ease their minds. The news media was not allowed on the property because it's not about the family, but about the little missing boy. That's what they said. One of the volunteers did call the media, and that's why it's being reported. Also, it's being reported about, why did that show up? Because there's nothing else going on newsworthy in the case, and the Averys are infamous, I should say, because of the whole situation with Stephen and Brendan, and that's why they wrote a news article about it. So that's basically the comment on it. But this is the article. Now, granted, like I said, the they did not have permission from the Averys. The news media did not have permission from the Averys to be on the property. So you're probably not going to see, when I play this, you're not going to probably see any pictures from the actual property. You're just going to see probably from outside of the property and all that stuff. So
Efforts in the search for a missing child in Two Rivers tops tonight's Fox 11 News at 5. Dozens of volunteers searching a new area with hopes of finding any information leading to the child's safe return.
Balanced news and severe weather coverage. This is Fox 11 News at 5.
Good evening and thanks for joining us tonight. Nearly 7 weeks after 3-year-old Elijah Vu was reported missing, volunteers continue to gather for large-scale searches.
It's been more than 10 days since Two Rivers police have released any update on its investigation into that boy's disappearance. Today, volunteer searchers tackled the Avery Salvage Yard, which is private property just off of Highway 147 near Mishicot. Organizers say the Avery family granted permission for the search, and there is nothing.
The way they said the way they spelled Mishicot, that just made me laugh. I'm going to turn that off though.
Nothing to connect Vu's disappearance to the property. Avery's auto gained notoriety in 2005, when human remains belonging to missing freelance photographer Teresa Halbach were found there along with her SUV. Stephen Avery and his then
SUV.
teenage nephew, Brendan Dassey, were convicted for Halbach's.
Is a RAV4 considered an SUV? I'm not a car person, but when she said SUV, I'm like, SUV?
Murder. Fox 11's Emily Matesic spoke with volunteers about today's effort to find Elijah Vu.
After a request was made on social media over the weekend for 100 volunteers to help search a very large area on Monday for Elijah Vu, volunteers were directed to the Avery Auto Salvage Yard property.
I am a little scared.
Scared?
Well, because of the Avery property. I don't know why, just because of what happened there many years ago, and it just still gives you like the weebie-jeebies.
I just want to say, like, as someone who's been to the salvage yard many times throughout, these years, for the rallies and stuff like that, I've never gotten like an EBGB feeling, but I guess it's because in my mind, Stephen and Brendan are innocent. So, and I personally do not believe that Teresa died on the property. I believe she died elsewhere. So I guess that's just why I'm kind of like, why are you scared? Like, that's kind of a weird thing to say to me. And it has nothing to do with this case, with the boy. It's just weird statement to make. I don't know.
But that didn't stop volunteers like Julie Nelson from wanting to help.
There's always a hope. Little Elijah is alive, but if it's not, we need to get him justice. Little guy that went too long without a voice, and he cried way too long without anybody hearing him. So I am here for him.
There was nothing specific that brought searchers to this property. Organizers tell us they simply asked the property owner for permission, and when it was granted, they assembled the biggest team they possibly could to look for Elijah.
The media wasn't invited onto the property like volunteers, but Fox 11 captured one group of people searching the fields and tree lines around the property, while other volunteers tackled the salvage yard area.
What I noticed is a lot of debris around, so you kind of have to look at everything. You can't just, there's car parts and there's whatever can be in a car, it's in there, and so you gotta take your time and kind of sift through stuff.
Searchers somewhat overwhelmed by the scope of their efforts.
It's a big property.
So big back there, you just kind of dove in where you could and got down. There's a huge brush pile, like a couple stories high down there, and kind of searched around there, and there it's real rugged.
The search didn't appear to uncover any new evidence in the search for the missing toddler, but those who looked say that won't deter them from continuing to look for answers.
Gotta keep trying. You can't give up.
In the town of Gibson, Emily Matesic, Fox 11 News.
And we'd like to reiterate that today's search for Vu was in no way connected to the Averys. Search crews were given permission by the property owner to search that area, as they have done in dozens of other areas. Those who want to help search for Vu tomorrow are asked to meet at Deja Vu in Manitowoc. There are 2 times at 9:30 a.m. and 1 o'clock p.m. when volunteers will get assignments. And as the search for Elijah continues, police continue to tell us that they continue to follow up on all of the tips and leads from the public. Anyone who may have seen Elijah or knows where he is urged to call the number on your screen. That tip line is 844-267-6648.
Right. So, like I said, they pretty much said the same thing that the family member said to me. Is this, that it had nothing. It was the salvage yard is not connected whatsoever to this case. They only searched on it just to give them peace of mind and just say, yeah, go ahead and you could cross it off your list. It is a very big piece of property. It is very overwhelming. If you told me I could search, I'd be like, oh shit, like it is pretty big. And that's kind of why, if you think about it, in the case of Teresa, that's why it was so hard to believe that they found her RAV so quickly in 30 minutes, because it really, truly is a big piece of property and very overwhelming. And it's basically like the equivalent of searching for a needle in a haystack. But that's basically, I just wanted to share that. And like I said, the statement from the family member was pretty much the same as what the reporter lady said, that, you know, they just didn't want the media involved, because, you know, can you blame the Averys? Look at what happened. The media is part of the reason why Stephen and Brendan is in prison. So, yeah. But yeah, that happened recently. And then other things, while we're here, I'm going to go ahead and click on the photos, because this is basically what we saw in. So that's the salvage yard as it is now. So you can see it's not as many cars as it used to be. And there they are gathering outside one of the fields. This is technically not on the salvage yard. That's why the reporter can stand here. This is outside of the salvage yard. So, and it looks like they're starting. What happens with searches is that they start in a row, and they do it of so many feet apart, and then they have that. It keeps it so where it's like an easy block of just a straight line forward, and with a multiple bunch of people in a row. But yeah, you can see that they're preparing to go over there and search this field. See how they kind of are standing like that, and then they just, you know, walk forward and kind of like look around in their little area as they walk forward. Anything goes wrong, let's search the yard. Well, and you know, I don't blame, like, if I was the parent of, this is, okay, well, I didn't know that, Dozer, but thank you. But if I was, you know, I'll be honest, if I was Elijah Vu's family, I would be asking everybody and anybody in that area if I can search their property. Not because I necessarily think that anybody had anything to do with it, but just so like the family member said, give you a peace of mind that you searched this area and you didn't find anything. You know what I mean? Because you really truly never know. There could be somebody out there who kidnapped Elijah, who disposed of him or evidence on somebody's property, because these properties in this area that the salvage yard is very big. They're very big properties, and it's possible that he could be somewhere on those properties. So I don't necessarily blame them for wanting to search on there. It's just, it's unfortunate that the Averys have a poor history with the community and with law enforcement, you know, from being, you know, Stephen being framed twice, and then, you know, it creates a distrust. And so that's part of, like, I don't blame them for being hesitant, or like, we don't want media, we don't want the cops, you know, that kind of stuff. So yeah, there they are searching in the field. There's the sign. And like I said, this area right here, I don't believe it's actually the salvage yard. I think it's like a field that somebody else owns. But the salvage yard is actually behind where these trees are. But yeah, see, there they go. Trying to think. I think this is the road that you turn down on, like the salvage yard is this way. And there's little Elijah. And there's Jesse. And then there's the mom, Katrina. But yeah, that's what that's about. And then there's this article here. Then it gives you a map of the area. But yeah. And as far as court stuff, Vang is due back on the 16th, which I'll do like a quick little video on what happens with that. And then Bar, the mom, Katrina, is on the 26th. As far as I know, nothing really substantial has happened court-wise. The court system is a very slow process, so if something does happen, I'll report on it. But I checked the Two Rivers Police Department Facebook. I checked that once a day. There hasn't been any updates from there other than they posted this little picture here that I made the cover photo, which I will share right here. They posted this picture right here, and with this part, our sources of strength allow us to think of and use the strengths we have when we move through the ups and downs of life. These strengths are powerful and they build resilience and healthy relationships, helping us cope, calm, and connect when we experience a variety of feelings and strong emotions. Our sources of strength not only help us survive life's challenges, but also help us thrive and grow. We hope that you will identify and lean on your sources of strength to help you through the challenges that you have faced and continue to face. We thinking of you. Thank you for your hard work and efforts to make our community safe, and with all you're doing to find Elijah Vu. The L.B. Clark Middle School Sources of Strength team. And then they made this little bracelet saying "Hope for Elijah." So I think that's like a really cute little cute thing that they posted. That's the only thing though, since like the news lady said, since the last now it's been almost 2 weeks or a little over 2. I was taken back when I saw how short Jesse was, and when he was leaving the court the other day, he looked up under 5 feet. Yeah, they don't look like big people, do they? Yeah. I can probably look up his official height on the website, but oh, and here's something that they posted. This is 4 days ago. I guess there's a Sources of Strength Club from the Two Rivers Public Schools. I'm not going to post it because there's a bunch of pictures of kids. But they're assembling those bracelets and putting the tie around it. And it looks like they're selling the bracelets and then giving the profits to wherever. I'm not sure. Let me read the article. Sources of Strength. The L.B. Clark Sources of Strength has decided to connect our community in support of Elijah Vu. Blue and green bracelets are available that say "Hope for Elijah, TR Strong." Blue is Elijah's favorite color, and green is a symbol of hope for missing children. There is a selfie wall mural created in the main hallway at L.B. Clark where students and staff are invited to show support by taking pictures, signing their names, and sharing support with each other. The LBC Sources of Strength students leaders remind us that tough times we need to lean on our sources of strength. Currently, as a community, we call our family, positive friends, healthy activities, spirituality to help us through. We would like to share these ideas with our district schools, great community, and hope that Elijah Vu will be found safe. Actually, I don't know if they are selling these bracelets. Thank you for precious. Sorry, purchase a bracelet. Amazing. Is there any way to purchase? Yeah, see, they're not really talking. They're not really saying that they're purchasable. LDC. LBC. So whatever LB means, and then Clark Middle School. So the LBC is the abbreviation for the school. I bought a supporter rubber band thing once out in circular. Oh my god. Yeah, I don't usually. I buy those all the time, and I actually put them on my in my car. I have the shift thingy, and I put them there, like all the Brendan ones I've had over the years, and other ones that because that's one of the ways that I'm like, yeah, I'll buy a $5 bracelet or whatever. And I don't wear jewelry. I don't like jewelry. I don't like the feel of it on my skin. But that's usually where I put that stuff when I purchase that. And yeah. So I don't usually wear that stuff either. Sometimes with Raleigh though, I'll wear it just to show off support for Brendan for a day, but I'm not like Linda used to wear hers 24/7, and I couldn't do that. Like I don't know. I think it's a sensitivity thing. Like, yeah. But anyway, the last update they had was March 28th. So as far as things going on with the case, let me check the group real quick. Elijah Boo. Where's the group that I'm in? There's a lot of Elijah Vu groups, apparently. Groups. Well, I'm not finding the group that I'm usually in. Well, I wonder what happened to it. I just saw something for it too the other day. I don't know. But anyway. Here it is. Yeah, there's not really, other than they're just still searching. And like I said, as soon as there's more case stuff as far as the courts, they haven't charged Katrina or Jesse for anything other than child abuse and neglect, because we don't have anything to charge. There's nothing to charge them with right now. So unfortunately, it's just a matter of keep searching and keep putting his name out there. And yeah. Jesse's preliminary hearing. Not everything is included. Mostly items were not amended to criminal complaints. Well, here's about his preliminary hearing on the 4th, it looks like, or the 3rd. Looks like defense attorney proceeds with motion to dismiss charges due to insufficient criminal complaint. Judge denies that motion, so that's cool. Was what you hear. You can probably hear my parents' TV. You can probably hear the fan. Proceeding with preliminary hearing. Detective Michael Herman, Manitowoc Sheriff's Office, has been with him for 30 years. Detective for 5. Some statements made by Detective Herman in response to either prosecution or defense attorneys not on criminal complaint. Jesse denied actually using cold water to discipline Elijah. He used it as an ultimatum, but did not state that it would mean he would use it. Okay, well, tomato, right? Jesse didn't explain why Elijah was afraid of cold water. So he's saying that he didn't do that, but he would still threaten it. But why was he afraid of the cold water? We don't know. I mean, there has to be a reason why he was afraid of it. Detective Herman does not recall if he asked Jesse if he changed the diaper more than once a day. He's aware a search of the apartment was done, but not aware of the contents of the search. He is not aware that there are if there were diapers in the house. Jesse said he was withholding milk, but that Elijah was eating other solid foods. Jesse told him that Elijah would eat with Jesse and his son. Jesse said that he helped put together the toy Elijah got for Christmas. Detective Herman said that he does not recall if he asked Jesse about children's books being at his house. He is unaware if books were found at Jesse's house. I guess they're trying to say, they're trying to set it up to show that Jesse wasn't this abusive asshole that the detectives, because they're saying, well, did you ask if there were other diapers? Did you ask if there were books? Did you ask about, blah, blah, blah? Or are we just assuming? So that's basically what it sounds like they're getting around to. Jesse said that he helped put together the toy Elijah got for Christmas. He does not recall if he asked Jesse about children's books. Detective Harmon said that Jesse's demeanor was calm when he spoke to him around 1 p.m. He says he did not listen to any 911 call. Jesse indicated that Jesse's son was also present in his apartment during the week of 2/12 to 2/20. Jesse said that his son does not typically play with other people, and the only contact Elijah had with his son was when they were eating. Which doesn't sound weird if the kid was a teenager. That doesn't sound off to me, but Detective Herman says that Jesse's son is unable to care for others and that he has difficulty communicating. And that's also why it doesn't sound weird. If the teenager wasn't interacting with the small child. The defense attorney asked Detective Herman how many times a day a diaper needs to be changed. Detective Herman responds with however many times it was soiled. Attorney asks if it was only soiled one time, would it have to be changed one time? Detective Herman agrees. Attorney asks if Jesse ever told him if Elijah was ever able to use the toilet, and Detective Herman says he doesn't know if they ever asked that question. So, I mean, we can assume that Elijah only pooped and peed once a day, but realistically, we know that's probably not true. I mean, people at least pee more than once a day. That's healthy, but DA says she is moving 2 photos into evidence and asks them to be sealed. It's probably because it's Jesse. Or not Jesse, it's Elijah. It's probably the 2 photos of Elijah on the phone. And those don't need to be in the public right now, considering what the contents of those photos could be. One of the photos, the reports have said are probably Elijah tied up and bruised up. We don't need to see those. So I do agree with that. Lieutenant Detective Glazer, TRPD, been with the department for 8 years. In June, 1 year, has detective in May. Some statements made by Lieutenant Glazer in response to either prosecution or defense attorneys not on criminal complaint. He assisted with searching Jesse's apartment, not aware of any dirty diapers being found. They spoke about the photo taken on 2/14. It was confirmed to be taken on Katrina's phone. Elijah appears to be wearing a black blindfold where it appears to be bruising on cheek, neck, and arm area. Confirmation is made that Jesse was seen with Elijah earlier in the day on 2/16. Doesn't state where. Katrina's phone moves away from Jesse's apartment around 5 a.m. 2/17 and moves towards the Dells. That's where she lives. She was stopped at some point after she leaves Jesse's apartment where there was no child present. If I remember correctly, that could have been where she was at the gas station or something like that. So they're basically indicating that the Elijah did not leave with Katrina, that Elijah was probably in Jesse's care still. Lieutenant Glazer is asked if he reviewed anything before his court appearance. He responds that he reviewed the amended criminal complaint along with other reports. He is asked for what other reports. Lieutenant Glazer responds that it's his own reports, and they're about 9-10 pages. Defense attorney asked to be provided with those reports, and the court takes a recess. Upon returning, defense has only been given 2 pages of the report because after the attorneys spoke together with the witness, they determined he only reviewed on specific paragraph, which is split between the 2 pages. Lieutenant Glazer says that no dirty diapers were found at the apartment, but that there were clean diapers. He doesn't recall exactly how many, maybe a box. He states the apartment was clean and sanitary. He does not know when garbage was collected, but states that there was a half-full garbage can in the apartment. He says the garbage can was searched, although not by him, but he does not believe a dirty diaper was found. So like I said, they're still trying to prove if Jesse changed the boys' diapers. It sounds like he had diapers. Because that's part of the original charge for Jesse is child abuse and neglect. Is one of the things is that he never changed his diapers. So he confirms the first picture was extracted from Katrina's phone, and the second picture was on Facebook Messenger, sent from Jesse to Katrina. He says that the first picture shows the right side of his face and arm. He says that there was a blanket on Elijah and that he was on a mattress or bedding, not on the floor. He states that the origin date of the second photo is unknown, but it was sent via Facebook Messenger on 2/15. So that was the evidentiary hearing for Jesse. I'm going to put this here. Oh, there's another one. He states that initially Katrina declined to give information about the time frame that's to Saucy's quick trip. He says that he did not question Jesse about the time frame. It is stated that other residents were interviewed multiple times. It is stated that they were unable to determine if anyone was cared for Elijah in the time frame Jesse and Katrina were at Saucy quick trips. He also says that Ellie assumes Jesse's son was in the apartment at the time. It is stated that the cold shower to give Elijah by Jesse was determined after Jesse was in custody through reading messages. He states that there's no evidence that this actually happened. He states that there are no messages that he wasn't provided food, no messages saying that he was physically harming Elijah. DA confirmed with him that Jesse's son would be unable to care for somebody else. Arraignment is set for 4/16 at 11:15 a.m. Defense attorney withdraws motion for bail modification. So everything so far that is set for Jesse is still set as far as bail, as far as the charges. Nothing's changed. It looks like they're preparing just to argue the child abuse and neglect charges. And since we haven't found Elijah, there's nothing else that we can try to charge him with. And until somebody starts talking, we really don't know what happened to Elijah, which is really, really, really freaking sad, considering that that's what this is about, is trying to find this little boy. But it doesn't look like there's any new leeway in that. Let me see. That's not what I wanted. Is this it? Nope, that's not what I wanted either. New, I'll name this folder Elijah, because I want to make sure, because I want to show the right pictures. So I'm going to show this picture again. This is the picture that I've been showing that has the phone numbers and all that stuff. Because if anybody out there who lives in the area has any information on what could have happened to Elijah Vu, please call the state tip line 844-267-6648. So far, they found only, I believe, the blanket that he's pictured with. They found that blanket a couple of weeks ago, I believe. And so that's all we've found. They did find one shoe that could have been his, but it's not been confirmed. So I don't want to say that it was his, but they are most likely thinking it was his shoe. Why they haven't confirmed that, I don't know. But, and as far as Jesse and Katrina are, they're still in prison for the child. They haven't spoken, other than what they've already spoken. And the family that's out here, that they just want answers as to what could have happened to this little boy. So if anybody has any information, please do call the tip line. There are rewards out there for information leading to finding Elijah and or the conviction of if whoever took or possibly hurt Elijah. So, if that's a motivational, please keep that in mind. But yeah, we basically are just trying to find what could have happened to this little boy and bring justice to him at this point. I think it's, I hate to be negative about it, but I think at this point it's highly unlikely that the little boy is still alive. I really hope that he is. I hope that he's safe and sound somewhere out there and, not hurting or anything like that. But at this point, I think it's just a recovery. So, if anybody has any information, and if anybody has seen, let's see. That's a cute picture. They post a lot of really cute pictures in these groups of Elijah, which I think is really sweet. Let's see. Where is what I was looking for? I don't remember what I'm looking for now. All these pictures are distracting my brain. What was I saying? Dozer, what was I looking for? ADHD strikes again. But anyway, so that's basically what I have for you guys. And like I said, I'll be keeping an eye out on the court proceedings as soon as I find out more information. There is this video here that I can play really quickly about Jesse's. You hear my dog in the background making her little grunty noises. Do, 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 do. How many minutes is this? Oh, it's 1 hour. We're still waiting for.
Come 1 second, I might have a lawyer I need here to finish up the 11 o'clock. Gerard, if you're on the phone, push *6 to unmute. Brandon, do you have him or no? I might have to do this.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, Orson said it's for his mom.
Is
not
his
for
mom
him.
with him?
Yeah. She's with him, yes.
Okay,
The
great.
mom is next to him.
Yeah, all right. So everybody else then is going to need to select English. If I did this right, everybody else needs to select English. If you don't pick
You don't
English,
have a vote, Judge.
yeah,
There's no vote.
I understand. I understand. Can you select the mom channel?
I guess they're trying to, because the mom does not speak English. So they're trying to have the translation for family members who can't speak English in court. They were having this issue last time.
Okay, I'm going back to the mom channel.
Sounds good.
Why you can't see anything, I don't
And
know.
Lisa, you can hear everybody? Okay. Then we'll go on the record. In State
There we go.
Wisconsin versus Jesse Bang, 24 CF 162. Appearances.
State appears by Jacqueline Marie and Joe Mendez.
Jesse Bang appears in person and in custody with attorneys Timothy Hogan and Michael Turner.
Krista Lee is present as Hmong interpreter. Ms. Lee, if you could come back to the English channel so we can swear you in. Would you please raise your right hand? Do you solemnly swear that you shall correctly interpret between the court and the parties from, well, actually you're not interpreting for the parties, but that you shall correctly interpret from the English language to the Hmong language and from the Hmong language to the English language to the best of your ability, so help you God.
I will.
Thank you. Please state your name and spell your last name for the record.
Crystal Lee, Crystallee.
Thank you. You can go back into the interpretation channel, and just to clarify for the sake of the record, Attorney LaBrie, your understanding is that Ms. Lee's services are for one of the victim's family members, correct?
That's correct, Judge.
And Attorney Hogan, that's your understanding as well?
It is.
Your client.
I believe it's Elijah's
Correct.
grandmother that needs the interpretation.
Matters on the calendar for preliminary hearing today. Attorney Hogan, what's the status?
Your Honor, we are prepared for the hearing this morning. I did want the court to address the motion that I filed. It should be document 26, filed March 18th. I think, although I drafted that motion with respect to the original criminal complaint, the arguments are still applicable for the amended criminal complaint, asking that the state make more definite and certain as to the alleged neglectful conduct. If they're unable to, I believe that the criminal complaint is insufficient for purposes of the chronic neglect charge.
All right, which document did you say that was?
26.
All right, and Attorney LaBrie, then your response.
Judge, I think the amended complaint that was filed by the state.
I'll be right back,
March
but I'm going to let
19th
this
of
play.
2024 addresses the concerns that are listed in the motion. And when a court looks at the criminal complaint, it must contain sufficient information together with reasonable inferences that there's probable cause of the crime. And at this point in the process, all reasonable inferences must go to the state. If there's equal inferences, the complaint is still sufficient. In the amended complaint, we have a narrow time frame. We're talking less than 20 days. Obviously, venue's been established. The victim was in the care of the defendant for that time period. There was his own admissions that the victim was specifically transferred to his care on February 12th of 2024. And the conduct while in that care involves multiple instances of these lengthy timeouts as are described, where the victim is asked to stand in a praying position for between 1 to 3 hours, which is very challenging behavior for a victim of that age, not only physically, but emotionally, especially in that kind of position. And this was something that was conducted on multiple days during that time period. The victim was also left alone, unsupervised in that time period, February 16th into the 17th, while specifically the 17th in the early morning hours, while the defendant as well as Ms. Bauer were away from the apartment. The victim is 3 years old and leaving a 3-year-old unattended for over an hour, I think also would qualify as one of the neglectful acts. We also have other evidence listed in the complaint, not only of the disciplinary things, the cold water discipline that was used, the fear tactics that were used, as well as the timeouts and being left alone. I think when you look at all inferences, the complaint is sufficient. I ask the motion to be denied.
In response to that, Attorney Hogan?
I stand by the arguments that I indicated in my motion.
All right. As the court views the motion, I'll just address the, as it relates to the charge of child neglect. It indicates 6 elements. The child is not attained the age of 18. I don't believe that's in dispute. The defendant was a person responsible for the welfare of the child, I don't think that's in dispute. The defendant, through action and for reasons other than poverty, failed to provide necessary care. I think the instances noted by Attorney Reed, as well as the alleged admission in the complaint by Mr. Bang that the child was in his care, he went to sleep and then the child, when he wakes up, is gone. That certainly seems like a failure to provide necessary care. The failure to provide seriously endangered the physical, mental, or emotional health of the child. The failure to provide was negligent, and the natural and probable consequences of the neglect would be death, great bodily harm, child sex offense, emotional damage, or bodily harm. I think for the reasons outlined by the conduct described by Attorney Bree, as well as the fact that Mr. Bang allegedly acknowledged that the child was in his care, he woke up, the child was gone, certainly rise to the sufficient level. So the court will deny that motion. What other motions did you want to take up prior to the preliminary hearing, Attorney Hogan?
No other motions to take up.
All right. And your client wishes to proceed with the hearing then?
Yes.
All right. Attorney Bree, you can call your first witness.
Your Honor, the state would call Detective Herman.
All right.
There is a second witness, Lieutenant Glazer, who will be stepping out of the courtroom.
Sounds good. Detective, you please come to the witness stand here, remain standing, raise your right hand. Clerk will administer the oath.
You solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give in the matter now before the court shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Be seated. State your full name and spell your last name for the record.
Michael Herman, Herrmann.
Go ahead, Attorney Bree.
Detective Herman, how are you currently employed?
I'm a detective with the Manitowoc County Sheriff's Office,
And how long have you been with the sheriff's office?
30 years,
And how long have you been a detective?
5 years.
Were you so employed on February 20th of 2024?
I was.
And on that date, did you respond to 3918 Mishcot Road, apartment number 102?
I did.
What municipality is that located in?
The city of Two Rivers.
Is that in Manitowoc County, state of Wisconsin?
It is.
When you responded to that apartment, did you speak with a Jesse Bang?
I did.
And the person you know as Jesse Bang, is he present in court today?
He is.
Can you describe where he's seated and what he's wearing?
He is seated at the defense table between his counsel, wearing an orange jumpsuit.
Let the record reflect identification of the defendant.
So reflected.
Did you have an opportunity to speak with Mr. Bang on February 20th of 2024?
I did.
And initially, did you speak with him at his apartment?
I did.
When you initially spoke with him, what information did he tell you about the victim, child one?
He indicated that the child was in his care, and that on that morning, he had gone to bed and brought the child with him into his room, closed the door, and that he woke up again at 11 o'clock in the morning and the child was missing.
And when you spoke with him, he indicated that he was in the care of victim child one at that point in time, correct?
That is correct.
Did he give you time parameters as far as when he initially started caring for that child?
He did.
And what time period was that?
Mr. Vang picked up victim child one on February 12th in the city of Fond du Lac at a quick trip from the child's mother, Katrina Bauer.
And how long was he supposed to have the child?
Until the following Friday, the 23rd.
All right, I'm back. So I've been listening while I was doing whatever. So just to give a recap for people who may not understand court stuff, the judge denied the motion to drop the charges. That's what we heard. And so they are now continuing on with the preliminary hearing. And now we have basically what I just read before. You're seeing it all play out. But yeah, that's what's happening right now.
Apartment on Mishcot Road, was that Mr. Vang's residence?
Yes.
And were you able during the investigation to ascertain the age of victim child one?
I was.
How old was victim child one?
3 years old.
Victim child one is Elijah.
Did you have an opportunity to have a longer conversation with Mr. Vang at Two Rivers Police Department?
I did.
Did you speak with him regarding victim child one and the purpose of the victim staying with him from February 12th through that February 23rd timeframe?
I did.
And what did he tell you about why the child was going to be there?
He had indicated that the child's mother was having difficulty with the child and the child's behaviors. An agreement was made between Mr. Vang and Ms. Bauer that he would assist her with those behavioral issues. An agreement was made that the child's custody would be transferred to him for a period of time to assist with those behavioral issues.
And did you discuss with him how he was going to deal or how he did deal with those behavioral issues?
I did.
And what information did he provide as far as dealing with those behavioral issues?
He indicated that the child would be in timeouts whenever there was problems with those issues.
And did you ask him what he meant by a timeout?
I did.
What did he tell you?
He indicated that he would have the child stand for 2 to 3 hours and pray while he was standing.
Did he give you any specifics as far as body position, as far as how the child had to stand?
He did. He indicated that he would stand and place his hands in a praying position and demonstrated this by placing his hands together in front of his person.
And he indicated that initially when you spoke with him that this would go on from 2 to 3 hours at a time.
That is correct.
And while this was happening, was the victim allowed to sit down or do anything else, or did he have to stand for the entire time period?
I was told that he was required to stand for the entire time period.
Did he indicate how often these timeouts were happening?
He had indicated to me that the entire purpose for him being at Mr. Vang's residence was for a timeout So he did not indicate exact amounts of times during the day, during any given day, but indicated that the entire purpose for his being at Mr. Bain's apartment was as a punishment.
This guy is the detective.
Did he give some time frames such as, was it the timeouts were the?
This guy talking right now is the detective that I mentioned in the first. Here, let me bring it up. Let me bring up his name real quick so I can get this right. Where did I save it? Not here. Huh, I just saved it somewhere and now I don't know where I saved it. Hold on. Oh, it's in desktop. So why can't I find it? Oh, it's because I didn't do it right. So this is Detective okay, hold on. This is yeah. This is one of the detectives. I'm not finding his name right now off the top of my head. Probably need to eat. Yeah, it's dinner time, but I'm gonna push through because this is important. But I'll get the name here in a minute.
Majority of the time, or whether it was a shorter amount of time?
The majority of the time.
Did you also talk to him about other disciplinary tactics such as cold water?
I did.
And what did he tell you about cold water?
I had asked him if the timeouts don't work, what process he would use for addressing the behavioral issues. He indicated to me that he was not sure why. However, the child did not like cold water, so he would give an ultimatum to the child that essentially asking him if he wanted cold water.
And he had indicated that that was something the child did not like or was concerned about?
That is correct.
Did you also talk to him about other care of the child as far as physical needs such as diapers, food, those types of things?
His name is Detective Herman. That's who's talking right now. It's 6:11 p.m. Yeah. So it's not too late for dinner, but
I did.
I'm going to start specifically with diapers. Was victim child one potty trained at this point in time?
Mr. Bang advised that he was not.
Did he indicate whether he was using diapers?
He did.
And did he indicate how often those were changed?
Mr. Bang advised that he changed the child's diaper at least one time per day.
He didn't indicate that he would change every time it was soiled. It was just one time per day on average.
That is correct.
Okay. Did you also talk to him about any food needs?
I did.
And what did he tell you?
Mr. Vang advised that the child was still bottle fed, and he was attempting to get the child to move to more solid or adult style food during the time that he was with him.
Would he withhold any food from him?
He indicated that he was withholding milk.
Did you also talk to him about other typical child needs such as activity or toys?
I did.
Those types of things? And what did he tell you about those?
You know, what's interesting is that the detectives aren't asking the questions that I would ask, like, well, what kind of milk? Are you talking like cow's milk? Or are you talking like formula milk? Because like that is important to ask. Because the kid is in that Elijah is in that age where you can continue to give both formula and regular solid foods. Like he's able to eat food at 3, just like not, a lot of foods. Some people choose to continue to do formula up for a little bit. So like those are interesting questions that they're not asking. And it's kind of frustrating because it's like, if you guys ask these questions beforehand, then you would have a more solid case if there was child abuse being happened. Like everyone's innocent until proven guilty. So the assumption is that Jesse and Katrina are innocent and you guys have to prove that they're guilty. And it's just a little frustrating because it's like, why didn't you ask about the diaper question more thoroughly? Like, but also, and I don't want to be like a sexist in a way when I say this, but like, these detectives so far are men, and men don't probably think like that like a female would, who has at least dealt with children. Like I've never had kids before, but I do have nieces and nephews that I've watched on multiple occasions, and that's why I understand diapers need to be changed often, especially if they're wet. But if he's just making the assumption basically like, oh, well, he only changed his diaper once a day. I don't know. Like, it's just, I'm kind of, like I said, I'm a little frustrated that during these interviews with Jesse in the beginning, they didn't ask more thorough questions, like the milk thing. For like I said, was it formula milk or was it cow's milk? What do you mean by withholding it? Like, are you trying to say that because it's not unnormal to say, well, we're gonna stop doing formula and we're gonna start doing solid foods? Like, that's not abuse. That's a normal transition, and different people do it different ways. So yeah, that's just my little rant for right now.
Those typical child needs.
He was asked about toys in the residence. Mr. Vang indicated that there was one toy in the residence, which was given to the child at Christmas time, and he had helped put that toy together. However, during this stay, because it was a punishment, he was not allowed to play with that toy.
So between that February 12th time period and when you were speaking with him, the victim was never allowed to utilize the one toy that he did have at the residence, correct?
That is correct.
And did Mr. Vang indicate a reason why he wasn't allowed to do that normal activity?
Again, he identified that his time with Mr. Vang during those weeks was as a punishment.
And specifically the timeouts?
Correct.
I have nothing else of this particular witness.
Attorney Hogan.
Thank you, Your Honor. Detective, did you review anything prior to your testimony here this morning?
The criminal complaint.
And that was the only thing that you reviewed?
That is correct.
And when you say the criminal complaint, do you mean the original or the amended criminal complaint?
The amended.
Now, you testified that Mr. Vang told you he started caring for victim child 1 on February 12th?
That is correct.
And it was supposed to last until February 23rd.
That is correct.
And when you responded, that was February, I believe you said 20th?
That is correct.
With respect to Mr. Vang talking to you about the timeouts, you indicated Mr. Vang told you the child had to stand in the corner or stand for 2 to 3 hours?
That is correct.
Did you ask him whether the child was unable to stand for the 2 to 3 hours?
I'm muted. No matter how you cut that situation, like, it is not cool to make your 2 to 3-year-old child stand there for hours on end as a punishment. Like, that is abuse. Like, I don't care what anybody says or tries to justify it as. Like, could the child do it? Well, I'm sure the child could do it. But that doesn't mean that's a good type of punishment. That is just way over the bounds of a punishment. Even for a person to make them stand there for hours on end in a certain position, even like this wasn't, and granted the position was a praying position, but still, that's, no, like, was the child able to do it? Like, I mean, probably, but that doesn't make it okay, but he can't answer like that, obviously. Like, that's not.
We did pose that question to him, and he had identified that it was not like the child was having trouble standing during those time frames.
So Mr. Vang told you that the alleged victim, child 1, didn't have trouble standing for 2 to 3 hour periods.
He did not indicate either way.
And you testified Mr. Vang had alleged victim, child 1, pray during those 2 to 3 hour timeouts.
Correct.
You testified that Mr. Vang said he would use the ultimatum of cold water, if I heard you right?
That is correct.
And did Mr. Vang ever tell you he used cold water in any way?
During my interview, he denied that.
So he denied actually using cold water?
That is correct.
And did he tell you what this ultimatum of giving cold water actually meant he would do?
He did not.
Okay.
So it's not as though he told you it meant I was going to pour cold water on you?
He did not mention that.
Tomato,
And
right?
You said Mr. Vang told you alleged child victim 1 didn't like cold water.
That is correct.
Did he explain that more as to what he meant by that?
He did not.
So then what did he
You
mean?
testified Mr. Vang told you alleged child victim 1.
So I'm interested now, because like I said, this is just a preliminary hearing, but I'm interested now, later down the road, what did Jesse mean by give you cold water then? A glass of cold water? Is that what they're going to argue here? Because, obviously this was a punishment, right? So yeah, we are making an assumption, and detectives didn't further elaborate that assumption, which is on them. But like, what is the assumption here that, what are you going to try to twist this as? Like, oh, well, I just meant giving him a glass of cold water, or I just meant like, I don't know, throwing a cup of water on him. But like, we're assuming that it's a shower. That's what they're basically saying. And since there was no actual shower, he didn't say that he gave him the shower. He didn't say that was the actual punishment he gave him. But it's semantic. It's like, that's why I'm a little frustrated. I was like, why didn't detectives straight out ask these questions during the interrogation to kind of clarify it? and we wouldn't be here, you know, if you did clarify it. But, you know, and then like the the defense attorney is basically getting at, there is no evidence suggesting that that actually happened, other than through the confession that Jesse gave.
Was not potty trained,
That is correct.
and that he was still in diapers.
Correct.
And I think your testimony was Mr. Vang told you he changed the diaper at least once per day.
Correct.
And did you ask him if there were days where he changed the diaper more than one time?
I do not recall.
You had spoken to Mr. Vang actually at this apartment where this all allegedly occurred.
Correct.
Did you see more diapers at that location?
I did not.
Are you aware if diapers were located at that residence?
I'm aware that a search was conducted of the apartment. However, I am not aware of the contents of that.
And you testified Mr. Vang told you alleged child victim 1 was still bottle fed,
That is correct.
but that he would try to get alleged child victim 1 to eat more solid foods.
That is correct.
Did he tell you whether alleged child victim 1 actually ate more solid foods?
So that's why he was withholding milk.
He did tell you that alleged child victim 1 ate more solid foods?
He indicated that the child would eat with him and his son while they were eating.
And so when you testified, Mr. Vang told you he withheld milk, he still provided the alleged child victim 1 other food.
That is correct.
So he wasn't starving him.
You testified that Mr. Vang told you there was one toy in that residence?
That is correct.
Did he tell you what kind of toy that was?
And it was indicated it was something similar to a toolbox.
Did you ask him whether there were books at the residence?
We did ask him if he was allowed to participate in any other fun activities. And again, he had indicated that he was there for punishment and was not allowed to participate in those activities.
So Mr. Vang told you alleged child victim 1 wasn't allowed to engage in fun activities.
Correct.
A lot of moving around.
Did you ask him whether there were books at the residence?
I don't recall if I specifically asked about books.
And did Mr. Vang mention anything about books, specifically children's books?
No.
And since you testified you are not aware of the contents of the search, you wouldn't be aware whether books were actually located at the residence, would you?
Not specifically, no.
Do you recall approximately what time in the day that you spoke with Mr. Vang at that apartment?
I believe it was around 1 p.m.
And do you recall what his demeanor was like?
Calm.
But this was at 1 o'clock in the afternoon.
Correct.
Do you recall when the initial dispatch occurred?
I do not recall.
Do you recall if it was very shortly prior to you meeting with Mr. Vang?
There had been some time that had passed between the time I went to the apartment and the initial call.
Did you listen to any 911 call recordings?
I did.
Objection, relevant.
Yeah, interesting.
I think that question's fine. I'll let him answer that question. You can answer.
I did not.
relevance. That is an interesting. Why is it not relevant?
Did Mr. Vang indicate whether there were
Right,
anybody
Dozer?
else- whether there was anybody else in the residence during the time from February 12th to February 20th?
Yes.
And who was that?
Indicated that his son, Raiden, was in their residence as well.
So there was another child living at that residence?
Correct.
Did Mr. Vang say anything about whether alleged child victim 1 was allowed to play with the other child?
That subject was asked, and he had indicated that his son does not typically play with other people. The only contact that child victim 1 had with his son was typically when they were eating.
I have nothing further at this time.
Allowed to play with
Agreed.
and
Thank you.
let play with are two different things. So it's interesting that the guy asked allowed to play with, or did he want to play with, I should say. It's that two different things. Yeah, so that's interesting question that he originally asked him. Did he allow him to play with Elijah versus did he want to play with Elijah? And I mean, it's not shocking to me that a teenager wouldn't want to play with a 3-year-old, you know. So, I mean, that doesn't say abuse or anything. Now, allow, like, was Elijah allowed to play with the teenager? That's a different scenario. So, and then him saying, well, he indicated that the teenager didn't want to play with Elijah, which is different narrative than saying, well, Elijah wasn't allowed to interact with anybody other than Jesse. Like, I see what the defense is doing. The defense is doing a good job. I'm going to give them that much. And I'm kind of a little disappointed in the state. But, this is only the preliminary and we're just getting started. So,
Detective, when you were talking with the defendant about these timeouts, did he indicate whether the victim would get tired or not?
oh, what happened? What happened? The feed cut out.
Indicated that his
victim 1 was
typically when they were eating.
Timeouts. Did he indicate whether the victim would get tired or not?
See, it cut out. What?
The other child
That was an important question we missed. Gosh darn it. Oh, well.
The defendant's child. Is he of the capabilities to be able to care for others?
He is not.
Is he even able to really communicate with others well?
He has a very difficult time communicating. Mr. Vang had identified that his son has autism.
Yeah.
I have nothing else, thank you.
Any follow-up to those questions, Attorney Moon?
Yes, thank you, Your Honor. Officer, you were asked a question about whether a diaper needed to be changed more than once a day. How many times would a diaper need to be changed?
Diaper should be changed every time it becomes soiled.
And if it was only soiled one time?
Yeah.
If it's only soiled one time, I could see where it would only be changed one time.
Now, you testified,
Which is a
I think that's
ridiculous
in
notion
relation,
because, like I stated before, you're going to need to use the bathroom more than once a day. So,
to alleged child victim 1 not being potty trained, right?
Can you restate that?
Sure. And when you were talking with Mr. Vang about diapers, that was in relation to alleged child victim 1 not being potty trained.
Correct.
And did Mr. Vang tell you whether alleged child victim 1 was ever able to use a toilet?
I don't know that we asked that question.
you didn't ask that question.
So alleged child victim 1 could have used the toilet sometimes.
Potentially.
In theory, he could be potty trained.
And on redirect, you testified that Mr. Vang told you alleged child victim 1 would become tired from standing.
Correct.
Did he tell you how alleged child victim 1 showed that he was tired from standing?
He did not.
So he just assumed alleged child victim 1 would become tired from standing.
I don't know what he would have been thinking at that time.
You didn't ask him.
I have nothing further.
Any follow-up? Those attorney number?
Not for this one, Mr. Judge.
All right, detective, you can step down. Thank you.
The city would be calling Lieutenant Glazer.
Bummer. That was a bummer. Like I said, like if I would be asking a little bit more like thorough questions during the interrogation because that's important to me. And plus I'm nosy in general. So like I would be asking those kinds of questions. If you put me in an interrogation room and I was interrogating somebody, I'd be asking all sorts of questions. I don't know why the detectives didn't think to ask those types of questions, but like I said, I think there was unfortunately a lot of assumptions being made. And yeah, so, but like I said, we're still early in this, so we'll see, you know. And for the record, I just want to say, I believe Jesse, like my personal opinion is I think Jesse and Katrina are guilty of doing some foul play with this kid. I think that, you know, there was abuse going on. I think that, Jesse absolutely, if not emotionally abused this kid, there was some physical abuse. I think making a kid stand for hours at a time praying, that's abuse. That's emotional abuse, if anything. Whether the kid can stand for hours on end and pray in one spot is, to me, relevant. You know, I could stand for, I mean, I work on my feet, you know, I stand for hours at a time too and walk around, you know, granted, but still, like, can I do it? Yeah. But if you forced me to do it as a punishment, you know, that's abuse. Like forcing a child that young to do that in my mind is abusive. So yeah, I just want to say, just because I'm being extra critiquey against these detectives, it's only because it's frustration out of you only have one shot to convict, to do this, right? And if you really feel like if he really is truly guilty, then you need to do it right the first time, and to ensure that not only you have the correct person, but that the correct person goes to prison like they're supposed to. If you can't do it right, then not only if Jesse is guilty, because like I said, we're this is all innocent until proven guilty. So if he is guilty and you don't do it right the first time, then he has the potential of getting away with it. Being able to do something is not exactly. Yeah, exactly. It's just like the same thing as there's a difference between letting Elijah play and making him not, you know what I mean? Like restricting him. So yeah. That's why I'm a little bit more also, because this is the same people that convicted Brendan and Steven. And I'm not saying that I think that the people that are being on trial right now are innocent or are innocent. I'm just saying, like, I'm just a little bit more like, have you learned from not your first time? You know, like it has to be done right the first time.
Lieutenant, you can come on to the witness stand here, remain standing, raise your right hand, and the clerk will administer the oath.
Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give in the matter now before the court shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Seated?
So this
State
is
your full name and spell your last name for the record.
Jacob Glazer, last name spelling Glaser.
This is Glazer, Detective Glazer that I mentioned, Lieutenant Detective Glazer that I mentioned before. So,
go ahead, Chairman.
Your Honor, just for the record, there are going to be two exhibits that I'm going to be using with Lieutenant Glazer. I previously shown them to counsel prior to the hearing. I'm going to be asking, once they're moved into evidence, that they be sealed in the record and only accessible by the court and counsel.
Attorney Hogan.
Thank you, Your Honor. I did have an opportunity to review both of those photographs prior to court. We would have no objection to the court sealing those and allowing access only for the court and the attorneys.
All right.
Because
so the court will grant that request, and then just
because likely chances are those are the photos that deal with Elijah being tied up and stuff like that. And like I stated before, there's absolutely no reason why those photos should be made public, like ever, really. Like I think that was a really good call on both sides. So, and thank you, Judge, for approving it. Yay, we all made a good decision.
just, I guess, caution the lieutenant when pictures are being handed around. Try to keep them confidential. All right, go ahead, Attorney Bree.
Lieutenant Glazer, how are you currently employed?
I am currently assigned the role of Detective Lieutenant for the City of Two Rivers Police Department.
And how long have you
He's
been
young.
with the Rivers Police Department?
It'll be 8 years in June.
And how long have you been Detective Lieutenant?
1 year in May.
Were you so employed on February 20th of 2024?
I was.
And as part of your employment, did you respond to 3918 Mishicot Road, apartment 102 in the City of Two Rivers?
I did.
Did you make contact with a Jesse Bang at that residence?
Yes.
And did you assist in this investigation in various aspects, not only interviews, but also reviewing some evidence?
I did.
As part of this investigation, did you also speak with a Katrina Bauer?
Yes.
And when you spoke with Katrina Bauer, did you speak specifically about victim child 1 and whether he was left in the care of Jesse Bang?
I did, yes.
And what did she tell you about whether...
Also, just a side note, the reason why they're calling it Victim Child 1 is because in this particular case of the child abuse and neglect, there's 2 children involved. Both of those are Katrina's children. Victim Child 1 is Elijah, and Victim Child 2 is her daughter, who I believe is like 5 or 6. And I do not recall her name off the top of my head. And it's okay that we don't know her name. But yeah, she's the one that was left in the car during one of her visits to Jesse the week before Elijah went missing. So Jesse had Elijah with him when she went to go visit Jesse at like 3 o'clock in the morning on like a really cold night. She left her daughter in the car, and that was the night where the photograph was taken of Elijah being tied up too. So yeah, so that's why they're referring to child, victim child 1. I don't know if they're going to go over victim child 2 questions anytime in this video, but yeah, just to clarify, that's why this is also a court hearing for child abuse and not related to the, or it is related to, but there's no charges against Jesse or Katrina for the disappearance yet for Elijah. At least they're direct, like there might be a charge for neglect that led up to his disappearance, sort of thing. But yeah.
Victim child 1 was left in the care of Dassey DOC on February 12th, 2024.
And how long was the child supposed to be with Mr. Bank?
Until approximately February 23rd, 2024.
And she was the parent of victim child 1, correct?
Correct.
And she left him in the specific care of Mr. Bank during that time period, correct?
Yes.
Did she indicate why?
From what she had told me was that it was for disciplinary actions, so that Jesse could, the defendant could instruct further on victim child 1's behavior.
And did she talk to you about discipline that was being used in Mr. Bank's home?
Yes, that was.
And did she describe some of the discipline that was used?
She did.
And what did she tell you?
I was told that victim child 1, the discipline that was filled out by the defendant was to be set in a praying motion for extended periods, repeating a phrase that victim child 1 had to memorize. And I believe that was it.
Did you also assist in searching of that apartment in Two Rivers?
I did.
During the course of that search by law enforcement, were any dirty diapers located in the apartment that you could find?
Not to my knowledge.
During the course of this investigation, were some cell phones recovered?
Yes.
And who did law enforcement recover cell phones from?
From several different people, specifically Katrina Bauer and Jesse Bank.
And were they recovered specifically from, let's say, their person, like Ms. Bauer's person or Mr. Bank's person?
Yes.
Were those phones subsequently searched?
Yes.
And during the search of those phones, was law enforcement able to locate messaging as well as photographs?
Yes.
Have you reviewed some of those photographs and messaging?
Yeah.
I'm going to start around February 13th of 2024. Were there some discussions between Ms. Bauer and Mr. Bang about her coming to his residence?
Yes, there were.
And during those discussions, was there any discussion on whether she would be able to see victim child 1 or not?
From my recollection, the defendant advised Ms. Bauer that she would not be allowed to see Elijah. Correction.
So that's something we already knew. Is that whenever Katrina went to go visit Jesse at the apartment while he had Elijah, she was not allowed to see Elijah. I have a feeling they went far for the stress and tried to cover. Maybe. I mean, I think something did happen. I think there was something that went too far, and Elijah passed, and then this was all just a cover up for that. I think that's 100% possible. We don't know. Obviously, it's hard because there's no actual evidence yet, because we haven't found Elijah yet. So we don't know how he looks. You know, that's a majority of the chunk of everything is the condition of Elijah. We don't have it. We're only basing this off of assumptions and statements made by Jesse and Katrina. You know, like as far as we can't say he's been starved because we don't have proof that he's been starved. You know, we don't have a proof other than that photograph that there possibly was beatings or anything like that. We don't, other than that photograph. In the photograph, we can't tell yet. Hey, Shuri, welcome. So it's a very like hard to try to prove child abuse so far because we don't really have any evidence. It's like with the whole diaper situation. The reason why they're asking, did you find any dirty diapers, is because they're trying to prove that they never changed this kid's diaper. But how can you not say that he didn't take the trash out? Maybe he already changed the diaper and then took the trash out. We don't know. It's really hard with this one. Because like I said, we won't know until we find Elijah.
Did you also look in that time period on the phones for any other documentation such as photographs during that time period of February 13th or February 14th?
Yes.
And was there any, strike that, were any photographs located on Ms. Bauer's phone from February 14th of 2024?
Yes, there was a deleted one found.
Your Honor, may I approach?
Yeah.
This is the sealed photograph. But we're not going to see it, so.
I'm showing you it's been marked as Exhibit 1. Can you review that, please?
Yes,
Do you recognize that?
I do.
And can you just describe for the record what that photograph depicts?
The photograph depicts victim child 1 wearing what is believed to be a black blindfold and appears to have bruising to his cheek, neck, and arm area.
And that was the photograph that was recovered from Ms. Bauer's phone, correct?
Correct.
And that photograph had been deleted, but it was able to be recovered?
Correct.
Your Honor, I move Exhibit 1 into evidence.
Any objection? No. Further received Exhibit 1.
And that was taken in the early morning hours of February 14th of 2024, correct?
Correct.
Did you also review messaging from February 15th of 2024?
I did.
And was there any messaging regarding timeouts from February 15th?
There were.
What type of messaging was occurring on that date?
Is it all right if I reviewed my criminal complaint for just verification on what messaging entailed?
Would that refresh your memory?
Yes.
And just for the record, is it the amended complaint or the original criminal complaint?
The amended complaint filed 3/19/24.
I'd ask permission to allow me to review that.
Go ahead.
The messaging on February 15th depicts a picture of what appears to be victim child 1 standing in the corner wearing only a diaper. The picture appears to be taken from the defendant's bedroom located at 3918.
Did you actually review that photograph?
I did.
Your Honor, may I approach? I provided you Exhibit 2. Do you recognize that?
I do.
And is that the photograph from February 15th of 2024?
It is.
And that was sent from the defendant's phone to Ms. Bauer
Correct.
at approximately 8:24 p.m.?
Correct.
And just for the record, can you describe what that photograph depicts?
It depicts what appears to be victim child 1 wearing only a diaper that appears to be full, standing in the corner near the doorway of what is the defendant's bedroom door.
And you've personally viewed this apartment, correct?
I have, yes.
Okay. So you're able to recognize what the rooms look like.
I do, and I recognize it as a defendant's room.
I'd move exhibit 2 into evidence.
Any objection?
No.
We'll receive exhibit 2.
Poor kid.
During your review of cell phone information for Ms. Bauer and Mr. Vang, did you review information from February 16th of 2024 into February 17th of 2024?
Yes, I did.
And on February 16th, was victim child 1 still in the care of Mr. Vang?
He was.
And in fact, he had been seen with Mr. Vang earlier in the day, correct?
Yes.
Was there a point in time when there was messaging between Ms. Bauer and Mr. Vang on the evening of February 16th of 2024?
There was.
And was Ms. Bauer coming to the Two Rivers area that evening?
Yes, she was.
And did she send any messaging as far as victim child 1 in the evening hours while she was on her way?
She did. She told the defendant to put her to sleep.
And looking at the cell phone information, were you able to see where Ms. Bauer's cell phone and Mr. Vang's cell phones traveled the early morning hours of February 17th of 2024?
Yes.
And did Ms. Bauer come to Mr. Vang's apartment?
She does.
And do the two cell phones leave together?
They do.
And approximately what time do they leave? Do they know?
12:30 a.m. on the 17th.
And where do they travel to?
The city of Manitowoc.
And specifically, where does Mr. Vang's phone travel to?
Saucy's Bar in the city of Manitowoc.
Was law enforcement able to make contact with individuals from Saucy's Bar?
Yes,
And was Mr. Vang seen there?
he was.
And did he have a child with him at that point in time?
He did not.
Did Ms. Bauer's phone stay at Saucy's Bar, or did it travel somewhere else?
It traveled to a quick trip located near Bellingham Avenue in the city of Manitowoc.
Was law enforcement able to obtain video from the quick trip?
Yes,
And when the video was obtained, was there any video that included Ms. Bauer?
yes.
Was it inside the store or outside the store? Or both?
Both outside the store and inside the store.
And when that video was reviewed with her, inside the store, was a child with her?
No.
And when the video was reviewed, when she was sitting in a vehicle in the parking lot, was a child observed with her?
There was no child.
Was there a point in time when Ms. Bauer went back to the area where Mr. Vang was at the bar?
There was.
And did both of them travel back to Two Rivers?
They did.
Roughly, when did they get back to the Two Rivers area?
Based off their cell phone data, it shows the two of them meeting back up at approximately 1:55 in the morning and then traveling back to the city of Two Rivers.
So with travel time from Manitowoc to Two Rivers, it's after 2 a.m. by the time they get back to the apartment, correct?
Correct.
Did law enforcement try and determine if anyone else was caring for victim child 1 during that time period between 12:30 a.m. and approximately 2 a.m.?
Yes.
And during that time period, was law enforcement ever able to find anyone who was caring for that victim child 1?
We were not.
So where was he?
Did Ms. Bauer stay in Two Rivers, or did she leave?
She left.
And she left in the early morning hours?
Yes, in the early morning hours, approximately 5 in the morning on the 17th.
And she was traveling back towards the Wisconsin Dells area, correct?
Correct.
And in fact, there was a point in time when she was stopped, correct?
Yes.
And were any children in her vehicle when she was stopped?
No.
Did you review any messaging between Mr. Vang and Ms. Bauer related to February 17th of 2024?
I did.
And specifically, I'm going.
No worries, Dozer. Thank you for stopping by.
6:39 p.m. What was the messaging about around that time period?
I believe the messaging was about victim child 1 filling his diaper and the defendant being upset about it.
And what did you do as a result of victim child 1 filling his diaper?
I recall him stating that he had given victim child 1 a cold shower and that he appeared to be scared afterwards.
Ah.
So as a result of the overfilled diaper, he was given the cold shower and that the child was scared, correct? Okay. Did you also review messaging from the time period around February 18th of 2024?
I did, yes.
Was there a discussion between Mr. Vang and Ms. Bauer about victim child 1 in the early morning hours?
There was.
And what was Mr. Vang telling Ms. Bauer?
As far as I referenced the exact quotes from these messages from the amended criminal complaint.
Would that refresh your memory?
It would, yes.
Yeah, I remember that now. Now that she mentioned it, that he did text Katrina and said that he gave Elijah a cold shower and that he was afraid after that. So there's your, they're trying to say, well, did he give him a cold shower? How is he afraid of water? Well, there's your reasoning. He did state through text messages to Katrina that he gave these cold showers. So I don't know if that's substantial enough for proof, but it's something. I wish that the detective still, asked those things, but we shall see what happens.
On the morning of the 18th of February, the defendant messages Ms. Bauer telling her that to trust him and that he's going to make sure that he hates him being at his residence. And Ms. Bauer responds that she does not want him to hate the defendant, just to fear him. And the defendant responds saying, it's okay, someone had to be the bad person. And Ms. Bauer responds by saying, I know, but either way, he can fear you and respect you. And the defendant responds, he did fear me, but he didn't respect me. Now I'm making him respect me.
I have nothing else at this point. Thank you.
Attorney Louis.
Thank you, Your Honor. Officer, did you review anything prior to your testimony here today?
Yes.
And what was that?
The amended criminal complaint, as well as additional reports that reference the criminal complaint.
So you, prior to your testimony here this morning, you reviewed other reports?
Specifically my own.
And when did you review that report?
This morning when I came in for duty.
And do you have a copy of that with you?
It's still very new, Shuri.
Where is that report now?
That would be located at the police department.
The kid, Elijah, is still missing. He's been missing since he's been missing since actually, let me do this real quick. He's been missing since was it February? Hold on. I'm sorry. I'm trying to figure out how to mute this. Done. Anyway. Yeah, he's been missing since February. And so they're still actively searching for him. I talked about in the beginning of the live how they recently searched the Avery salvage yard. Not because they feel like it was connected to the case, but they just wanted to make sure that, they search everything. So Yeah. Let me see if I can find a exact date. I think 2/20 was when he was reported missing. Yeah. So it's still very fresh and active. There's still an investigation going on. Right now, the two people who are involved are on trial. The mom and the boyfriend are on trial for child abuse charges, but not because they feel like not how do I say this? Because of instances leading up to the disappearance that they feel was abusive. So that's basically, they're not on trial yet for the actual disappearance because we don't know what happened. We still have yet to find Elijah. It's been probably almost 2 months since he's been missing. So, yeah. Katrina and Jesse, who are the two people on trial, are basically not talking anymore. They questioned Jesse, and Jesse gave a bunch of these statements indicating that he was abusing Elijah with the cold showers and not changing his diaper and making him stand for hours on end in one spot while praying and chanting a prayer. But other than that, that's all they really have to charge him with right now. So but that's what we're going over, the preliminary hearing.
And you reviewed that in preparation for your testimony here today?
I did, yes.
Your Honor, I would ask if the state has a copy that they could provide to us.
Turn Brink.
I don't have one in the courtroom. I would have to go upstairs to see if we can obtain them.
Is that what you want to ever do?
No problem.
I can ask a couple of follow-up questions. Officer, how long is that report?
I believe it's 9 or 10 pages.
And does that detail the investigation you did on a particular day or sort of total summary?
It's more so in regards to the interviewing with Ms. Bauer.
Okay, so the report that you reviewed was in relation to your report regarding your interview with Ms. Bauer?
Correct.
Your Honor, I would ask that we be provided a copy of that report.
All right, we'll take a minute here and allow the state to go get that. So we'll go off the record and we'll be in recess for.
All right, let me see. I might have to fast forward in this.
Judge, Miss Vendetti's here. She can go up and grab it to you.
And if preferable to the court, while that's being done, I could.
Yeah. So they're taking a brief recess.
Well, that's weird.
There we go. Do. There.
Whoops. Oh yeah, we got this on Zoom. Okay, so my understanding is there was a short period of disconnection. Yeah, the interpretation channel got axed. Ms. Lee, are you still there? What? Can anybody hear me? Did I get disconnected?
I can hear you, Judge, but I know the interpreter cannot hear you. Miss Lee, can you hear me? I don't think she can hear me either.
Well, that's weird.
Oh, you can.
Wait, she can hear you, but she can't hear me? can you
I
tell?
can hear you a little bit on Zoom now. You're kind of soft.
Huh.
Can you hear me now?
Um,
Can you hear me now? See, technology's so great, isn't it?
Yeah, but I can't hear Miss Lee.
All these
You guys
advances
are
in
not on Zoom, but
technology.
I'm on FTR right now when she's talking.
Mr. Boo's got a thumbs up going. I don't know if that means he can hear her. So Lisa, I'm not coming through clearly to you?
On Zoom, you're cutting in and out. But I can hear you on the FTR.
Okay.
And right now, you're just a little soft on Zoom.
Judge, I can hear you. I'm not sure if you can hear me, but
yeah, I can.
I'm not hearing anything from the interpreter at the moment.
Okay. Miss Lee, can you hear anybody?
Okay, I can hear her. Yes, Mama.
You can hear her again?
Yep.
Can she hear me?
Couple of the judge now. Hello? Okay.
Can you hear me now?
Okay, so she can hear me, but she can't. And you can
Hold
hear
on.
you, but
Just a minute.
Okay.
Fingers crossed. We'll go back on the record.
All right.
We're back. Been provided a copy of that report then?
Your Honor, I would note for the record, I was provided 2 pages of the report. There was some discussion between the attorneys and the witness. The witness had clarified that he had only reviewed essentially one paragraph that separated onto 2 pages in preparation for his testimony. That's what I was provided and had an opportunity to review.
Okay. So let's nail that part down with the witness, because the court's recollection of the witness's testimony is he reviewed a 9-page report. So I guess Attorney LaBrie, if you want to clarify that, then, well, wait, Attorney Hogan, you were asking. Yeah, I guess you can go ahead and ask some questions about what you've been given, Attorney Hogan, and whether that's what he reviewed or not, and we'll go from there depending on the answers you get and what you want.
Hey, Dozer, welcome back. We're almost done here.
I'm looking at 2 pages of a document that I think you had an opportunity while we were on break to review. Is that correct?
Correct, yes.
And I believe I overheard you telling someone from the district attorney's office that there was essentially 1 paragraph and that was all you had reviewed?
Correct, yes, specifically about the photograph portion there.
Okay, prior to going on break, I asked you some questions about what you had reviewed,
Yes.
and you had indicated your report.
Yeah, I was referencing that specific report, yes.
Okay, but you didn't indicate at that time that you had only looked at essentially 1 paragraph of that report?
Correct.
But your testimony here right now is that you did only review that 1 paragraph?
Correct.
You testified that you assisted in the search of the apartment
Yes,
and no dirty diapers were located?
correct.
Did you locate any clean diapers?
Yes.
How many?
I don't recall off the top of my head. I believe there was at least 1 box that was found.
1 box of clean diapers?
Yes.
And was there any sort of unsanitary conditions in the residence?
No.
There wasn't like garbage all over the place?
No, it was a well-kept apartment.
And were you made aware at all of when garbage had last been taken out of that residence?
I don't know for sure. There was garbage in a garbage can that was still there.
And how full was that?
Half to 3/4 full, I believe.
And did you search through that?
It was searched through. I did not do that myself.
Do you know if there were any soiled diapers in that garbage?
I do not believe so.
You testified that you reviewed a number of messages and photographs on some cell phones.
Correct.
And You testified about exhibits 1 and 2, and those
Uh-oh.
are photographs. Were both of those photos located on Katrina Bauer's phone?
No.
Which was exhibit 1 located on Katrina Bauer's phone?
Yes.
And exhibit 2 that was located on Jesse Bang's phone?
It was located on Facebook Messenger, sent from the defendant. Yes.
Okay. And exhibit 1 was actually in the photo section of the phone?
Correct, extracted from Ms. Bauer's phone.
And you testified in exhibit 1 that alleged child victim 1 is wearing a black blindfold?
Correct.
And there's some bruising that you're able to observe?
Correct.
And were you able to determine when that photo was actually taken?
Yes, based off of the timestamp from the phone extraction.
And when was that?
On the 14th, early morning hours.
And that was actually taken on Katrina Bauer's phone?
It was.
Katrina's
and
phone.
it showed GPS location of the defendant's apartment.
And in exhibit 1, you can see alleged child victim's sort of side face.
Yes, the right side.
And I believe his right arm, part of his right arm.
Correct.
I believe exhibit 1 shows alleged child victim 1 with a blanket.
Yes.
On some type of mattress or bedding of some sort.
Correct.
So not laying on the floor at all.
Correct.
Covered up with a blanket partially.
Yep.
With respect to exhibit 2, you testified that shows alleged child victim 1 standing.
Yes.
From a distance away from the camera.
Correct.
And you testified that alleged child victim 1 is wearing only a diaper.
Yes.
And that was taken, the photo was taken February 14th, I think you said?
This is the photo of the child victim one standing in the corner.
Correct.
I don't believe that was the date that photo was taken.
Do you recall the date that that photograph was taken?
I don't have the origin date of that photograph. I just am aware of when it was sent via Facebook Messenger.
And what date was it sent?
That was sent on, is it alright if I refresh my memory with a criminal complaint for that photograph?
If that would refresh your recollection.
How kind.
That would be February 15th.
February 15th was the date it was sent?
Correct.
And you testified that that was sent on Facebook Messenger from Jesse Bang's Facebook to Katrina Bauer's?
Correct, yes.
And in that photograph, you can see alleged child victim 1's skin.
Oh, the dog.
And are you able to observe any sort of bruising or other injuries in that photograph?
Can I refresh my memory by examining that exhibit again?
If you want to take a look at exhibit number 2.
I cannot.
You cannot locate any bruising or other injuries in exhibit 2?
Correct.
And are you able to tell if that photograph was taken in the daytime or at nighttime at all?
It appears to be daytime.
It appears to be.
Now you testified that you were able to observe some phone activity and location data from some cell phones in the early morning hours of February 17th.
Correct.
And I believe you said Katrina Bauer's phone shows her phone arriving at Mr. Bang's residence in the early morning hours.
Yes.
And then leaving that location at the same time Mr. Bang's phone was leaving.
Correct.
You testified that you observed some video surveillance from that date,
Yes,
and that was from Quick Trip.
yes, it was.
And you saw Katrina Bauer go into a Quick Trip.
Yes.
Were you able to observe inside of the vehicle?
Yes.
Like the entirety of the inside of the vehicle?
Based off of different frames we were able to take and look inside the vehicle to observe all angles.
And you testified that the phones got back to Two Rivers at some point after 2 o'clock in the morning.
Correct.
And so between approximately 12:30 in the morning and 2 o'clock in the morning, through your investigation, there was no evidence of alleged child victim 1 having left the residence in that time frame.
Correct.
And I believe you testified that law enforcement was unable to find anyone caring for alleged child victim 1 during that time.
Correct.
And did you ask Katrina Bauer about that time frame?
We did, yes.
And what did she tell you about that time frame?
She was not able to give us a lot of detail on that time frame initially, as that was, she declined to initially give officers details regarding that time.
Did you or other law enforcement ask Mr. Vang about that time frame?
I specifically did
not. Have you taken other steps in attempting to identify anyone else who may have been at the residence during that time frame?
Yes.
And what kind of steps were those?
There were several interviews that were conducted through many of the other residents that are located in the apartment complex that the defendant resides in. We've gone through, again, many phones.
I think it's clear to say that the kid was either A, left alone in the apartment for many hours while they went out and drank and did what they did, or B, the kid could have been missing by that point. And I'd have to look at the timeline of, because he was reported missing on the 20th. So I think they saw the kid after this particular incident that they're talking about. I think there was witnesses that saw him with Jesse at another place. So if I'm remembering this correctly, the kid was, they're basically trying to say the kid was left alone in the apartment by himself without any supervision whatsoever, a 3-year-old. Because they've already stated that the teenager was not able to care for anybody, including himself. So that's the other question, is that what about the teenager? But I don't know if the teenager, if that would be considered child abuse or neglect because of the age of the teenager. I don't know.
And Facebook Messenger to determine if there was any care or conversation of care to be had during those times.
Were you able to determine whether there was any other person in the residence at that time?
We were not.
Are you aware that Mr. Vang has other children?
Yes.
Specifically, are you aware that Mr. Vang has a son that lives at that residence?
Yes.
And were you able to determine whether Mr. Vang's son was at the residence during that time?
It was assumed.
Assumed. You know what happens when you assume?
And so there was at least an assumption on law enforcement's part that there was at least another human being at the apartment.
But the human being that was there could not take care of himself or the child.
You testified that there was
because he was severely autistic.
Messages from later on the date of February 17th that you reviewed.
Yes.
And one of them was with respect to alleged child victim 1 killing his diaper.
Right.
And that Mr. Vang had messaged that made him upset.
Yes.
And that Mr. Vang's message said that he had given alleged child victim 1 a cold shower.
Correct.
Did you or other law enforcement ask Mr. Vang about that message?
This was after he had already been taken into that was.
Do you have any evidence?
You should never assume
that Mr.
anything.
Vang, in fact, gave alleged child victim 1 a cold shower on that day?
Other than the messages,
So it's just a message that Mr. Bang had said, this is what he did, but you don't know if that actually happened.
Wouldn't that be enough? What a weird
You
question.
testified that there were some messages in the early morning hours on February 18th.
Yes.
And something along the lines of Mr. Vang saying that he was gonna make alleged child victim one fear and respect him.
Correct.
In any of the messages that you reviewed, did you review any messages of Mr. Vang saying anything in relation to he was going to physically hurt alleged child victim one?
My recollection, no.
Any messages that he was attempting to not provide food to alleged child victim one? Any messages related to anything specific about physically harming alleged child victim number one?
And I also want to point out the reason why they keep bringing up food, even though there isn't necessarily a charge of starving or anything like that. It was brought up in the report that all Jesse would feed the kid was like barely anything, like cereal and stuff like that, like dry cereal. 3, 5. So that's why they're bringing up the whole food aspect. I think the defense is trying to rule out the fact that this kid wasn't starving. But again, like I said, all of this is based off of assumptions, it seems to me. So other than the cold shower and the statements that Jesse have made, statements and stuff that Jesse has made to law enforcement and to Katrina through text messages. So, yeah.
I have nothing further at this time.
Attorney Green.
Thank you. Lieutenant Glazer, the photograph in Exhibit 2.
I'm going to call him Lieutenant
The
Hottie.
back of victim child one, correct?
Correct.
You cannot see the front.
Is there a
the
Mrs.
face,
Glazer?
the back, anything like that, correct?
Correct.
You can't see the elbow area that's depicted in Exhibit 1, correct? So the only thing you're able to view is the back of victim child one, the back of his legs, and part of the back of his arms, correct?
Correct.
Whereas in Exhibit 1, you can see the injuries to the neck, the face, and the arms, correct? You were asked about.
I like the nerdy look.
February 17, 2024, that it was assumed that the defendant's son was in the residence during those early morning hours of 12:30 in the morning, correct?
Correct.
That individual, the son, can he care for another child?
No.
Is he even able to speak?
He's nonverbal.
Nonverbal teenager.
Would he be able to, based upon his limitations, provide care for anyone else?
No.
And you were just asked some questions about the messaging from the 17th, about the cold shower. And that messaging indicated that victim child one was clean after the shower, but also that he was scared, correct?
Correct.
I have nothing else, thank you.
Any follow-up to those, Attorney?
No.
Lieutenant, you can step down. I'll take Exhibit 22 from you.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to prove child abuse. I mean, I'm being honest here. Unless they have more stuff, you know.
Any other testimony, Attorney LeBrie?
No, Judge, thank you.
Any testimony, Attorney Oden?
No.
Argument, Attorney LeBrie?
Your Honor, the state would move for bind over. I think we have sufficiently shown probable cause that a crime was committed and that it's probable that this defendant committed it. We have a specific time period in February of 2021. These incidents occurred in the city of Juvenile Rivers. The victim was 3 years old, so he would be under the age of 6. That was required as far as the charging. We have multiple acts that could fit under the chronic neglect. There were multiple timeouts. We have those documented by the
That is what they
defendant's
have, yeah.
as well as the messaging. There was also concern over proper physical care as far as the diaper. There's statements regarding potentially changed once a day, not finding dirty diapers. The garbage, but we are finding messaging about the child overflowing his diaper, and the photograph which shows a full one. There's the cold water threats as well as utility during the cold shower, which left the child scared. And furthermore, the child was left alone on that February 17th date without supervision for over an hour. I think at this point, at a preliminary hearing, all inferences go to the state. I think we have sufficiently shown probable cause. Thank you.
Attorney Hogan.
Your Honor, we're going to ask that the court not find probable cause with respect to the February 17th incident of alleged child victim 1 being left home without no supervision. I don't believe that the elements have been met at that time. The testimony is that the child's mother was actually at the location and ended up leaving with Mr. Vang. I think given that the child's mother was there at the time, possibly was not Mr. Vang then being a person responsible for the welfare of the child during that time frame, as the victim's mother was present at that time and location.
Oh, interesting.
However, even assuming the court finds that at that time he was a person still responsible for the welfare of the child, there's just as much evidence to suggest that he was supervised as unsupervised. I think the testimony was
He wasn't, though.
we were unable to locate anyone who had been supervising the child or been at the residence during that time frame, and law enforcement made other assumptions as to other people who had been at the residence.
Wouldn't that be easily fixed if he was supervised? If he truly was supervised at that time frame, wouldn't that be easily fixed if Katrina or Jesse stepped forward and said, here's the person that did it, contact them, and they can verify that they supervised Elijah during this time period? But they haven't. So that to me says that he wasn't being supervised, because where is it then? He was left alone. I mean, yeah, can the courts prove it though, I guess is the question, or can the lawyers prove it? But like, you know, in saying that, well, the severely autistic teenager who can't even communicate with anybody, you know, he was, you know, the defense is trying to state that he was sufficient enough to watch this kid. He can't even communicate. We don't. Now, granted, I'm not saying people who are autistic who cannot communicate aren't able enough to watch a child for an hour or two. But we don't know enough about his capabilities or not to assess that. And the detectives are making a whole lot of assumptions. So, yeah, this is frustrating for me. It's very frustrating for me. But yeah.
During that time frame, with respect to the condition of the apartment, the testimony.
And also, I want to say
any unsanitary.
It is interesting because is it Jesse's responsibility if the mother was there at that time? Because she came, like, that's what happened. So here's the setup. So Katrina leaves Elijah with Jesse for like a week or two. But every once in a while she stops by and she visits. I just want to make sure that didn't pop up. Every once in a while she visits with Jesse. But she doesn't actually, but Jesse refuses for her to see Elijah. Like, he says, you cannot see Elijah while you're here. but they visit, they have sex, they drink, whatever. Like whatever she's doing. One of the visits, they said it was for sex. So while she's there, does that mean the responsibility of the child then transfers to her, being that she's the mother and he's just the boyfriend? You know, he's not a legal guardian. He's just a boyfriend. So if she left with him to go driving to a bar and to a gas station and blah, 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 and left Elijah by himself, does that mean Jesse is responsible for that decision, that he should be charged for it? That's a good question. You know, that's a good point to make. Like, is it solely on Katrina? Even if he's like, well, I'm taking on full responsibility for this kid for the week or two, you know, that doesn't mean that if the mom shows up, then that it legally stops being his problem. I don't know. So Jesse is daddy daycare and something went wrong. She left him with Jesse to teach him how to quote unquote be a man. Like that was basically, I don't know if it was because she didn't have childcare. She has another child that's also young that she's watching, that she has in her care. So I don't think it was because of daycare issues. I think it was just simply for some strange reason, she had it in her head that Elijah needed to, as a 3-year-old, needed to act more responsible. And, you know, so she left him with Jesse, who is basically going to teach him how to be. And like, I only laugh because it's ridiculous to say a 3-year-old needs to do that. Like, it's just a ridiculous notion. I don't think he would be, or at least not nearly as much as an actual parent. Yeah. So like, is he like accessory to it? I don't know. Like, so that is interesting. That basically, I feel like that's what the defense is trying to go with. Is it really Jesse's responsibility if the mom was there? Should he really be charged with that?
Conditions at the residence, that it was generally a well-upkept apartment, that when the search of the apartment was conducted, it was generally clean. One of the garbages was about half full. The officer testified that he wasn't aware whether any dirty diapers were located in that garbage. Even assuming that the photograph shows in exhibit number 2 a soiled diaper, the testimony is that a photograph was taken days prior to the search being conducted. There is testimony that Mr. Vang admitted to changing the diaper at least once per day. No evidence to suggest that alleged child victim 1's diaper necessarily needed to be changed more often than that, or that even if it did, that Mr. Vang didn't change it more than once. We have the testimony suggesting that at least once per day, which leads to the reasonable inference that on more than once per day it was also changed. So I think based on the testimony presented today, there is not probable cause to believe that Mr. Vang committed the offense charge, and we would ask that the court dismiss.
The court's charge at the preliminary hearing stage is to determine if there's probable cause to believe the felony was committed and the defendant committed it. When looking at testimony in giving the reasonable inferences, finding the reasonable inferences in favor of the state. What I think kind of ties it all together here is testimony regarding text messages from February 18th, and specifically the defendant messaging Ms. Bauer that I'm going to make sure he hates me and being here. The message that he did fear me and respect me. He didn't respect me, now I'm making him respect me. That tells me that the reasonable inference there is that Mr. Vang is carrying out actions that are designed to instill fear in the child. He acknowledges as much. I don't think one can reasonably make the argument that Mr. Vang is not engaging in conduct which could result in emotional or mental harm to the child when he's specifically stating he's doing it in order to get the child to fear. Like I say, that's what ties it together. But the testimony in the record today, specifically referencing exhibits 1 and 2, it's full of evidence that supports finding the probable cause here. So the court will find that there's probable cause to believe a felony was committed and Mr. Bang committed it. I'll find him over for further proceedings. Is this anticipating filing any information with charges to a charge that mirrors that in the amended complaint?
Your Honor, I'm asking for an arraignment date. I don't need a long amount of time.
All right.
I'm fine with saying that this is defense counsel too.
So they're going to proceed with charging him.
I'm out next week and parties have time on the 16th.
Depending on time of day, yes.
I would hope 10:30.
April 16th at 10:30?
Yeah.
I actually believe counsel and I are in a motion hearing at that point.
Oh.
It's in branch 1 though, so we're.
Do you anticipate, how long do you anticipate that taking?
I think less than a half hour, correct?
I have pleading this at 11, that we can either do this on the front end of, if you're done before the half hour's up, or as soon as that's finished, because I don't think it'll take a full half hour.
I would say it would probably be safer on the back end because that motion is motion to dismiss and then approve.
All right.
If we did like 11:15.
So right now they're going over
Can
dates.
you guys do 11:15?
That works. 11:15 works.
So we'll set the arraignment for April 16th at 11:15. Just 1 second here. Attorney Holman, you also had the client also filed a bond modification request. Did you follow up with one of your own or not?
We did not. I thought I mentioned it at the last hearing. If I did not, I apologize. At this time, we were withdrawing that request.
All right, so good. Anything else for the record then today, Attorney LeBrie?
No, Judge.
Attorney Hogan?
No, thank you.
Then we're adjourned. Thank you for everyone's patience. So the folks who.
All right.
That hearing's concluded.
And that's all she wrote so far. What if the autistic lad snapped whilst they were drinking and then they panicked? And at this particular instance that they're talking about, I don't think that could have happened, Dozer, because the child was then seen at a later time with Jesse. So that's how they know that the kid was still alive. If he's dead, we don't know what happened to him. So I hate to say like he's dead right now, but yeah, so that's how right now they're only proving in this particular instance that there was abandonment and that was abuse, and that is considered abuse. So that's basically what they're trying to prove with this particular instance is more child abuse charges. So I don't. 2, 3, 4, 5. Sorry, I'm doing postcards right now too. Yeah, and I don't want to blame the kid, this teenager. We don't know anything about him other than he's severely autistic. He's nonverbal. He lives with his dad. I don't know where he's at right now. I don't know if there's a mom in the picture. I don't know anything like that. I don't want to make assumptions off of who could have done it other than the people who are on trial right now, because law enforcement hasn't really given us any other suspects to work with. I mean, it could have been, he could have been kidnapped for all we know. He could have, because the story literally goes that, you know, Jesse went to sleep and when he woke up, the kid was gone. You know, so he could have wandered out of the apartment and got snatched up. We don't know. You know, we just, like I said, as far as we know, the kid is nowhere to be known. Jesse says he doesn't know, you know, he woke up and the kid was gone. Katrina says that the kid, you know, she left him with Jesse's care and she doesn't know what happened to him. So, you know, and like I said, my gut tells me obviously that they did something. I think if they did do something, it was an accident, and it, you know, based off of what it could have been, a punishment gone too far. But we just don't know yet, and hopefully, they find Elijah, whether he's been deceased or not, and we get more answers, and this little boy gets some sort of justice out of all of this. Many ways to get to 10. Yeah, exactly. So, you know, I just don't want to put out any false assumptions or narratives about anybody connected to Jesse or Katrina, like any other family members. I don't want to blame a teenager, you know, an autistic teenager, for something that, you know, we don't know. We don't know. And what we do know is very limited, and it should probably stay that way until law enforcement, you know, finds out more information. But, you know, that being said, I'm going to end this here because I have to start getting ready for bed myself. And, you know, as soon as we know more about this case, I'm going to be following, you know, when they go to trials and all that. So, like, the next one coming up for both Jesse and Katrina, as soon as, you know, I get more information on that, I'm going to go live and, you know, talk about it some more to the best of my ability. And, yeah. So, but, you know, again, I'm going to show this picture, and to say again, if anybody has any information on what could have happened to Elijah or where he is or anything that has to do with that, please contact the state tip line at 844-267-6648. I know the FBI and the city of Two Rivers and Crime Stoppers are all offering rewards, cash rewards for the direct conviction and or location of Elijah. If, you know, if that's a motivation for you, if you have any information, please do contact, though, even, you know, for anonymously or anything. You know, I think a lot of people just want to find Elijah and bring him home to his family, whether that be a resting place or hopefully alive. You know, I pray for this little boy, and hopefully we have some answers soon. But thank you for stopping by, and until next time.